3rd District Representative Julian Fraser challenged Premier Smith on government's commitment to build a reserve fund, arguing that the money should be spent to develop the territory and create jobs instead. Speaking during last Monday's sitting of the House, Fraser said the territory's economic situation calls for an infusion of capital, but he argued that the austerity measures the Premier is embarking upon will not help to improve the country's current financial phase. Under the protocols for effective financial management signed in April of this year, it is stipulated that the BVI government must build its reserve fund. However, Fraser argued that the Premier has up to 3 years in which to become compliant with the protocols, and the money going into developmental projects is less than what is being placed in the reserve.
The Minister of Finance is going to tell me that he has $22 million in the reserve fund. $22 million in the reserve fund. And saying to me, Madam Speaker, that since the year has turned, he has put $14.5 million in that fund. $14.5 million, and Madam Speaker, only $9.2 million or so in the development fund. The protocols gave the Premier the option of 3 years within which to make the protocols compliant. So I don't know what his objective is right now, Madam Speaker. Is the Premier trying to bring the country to the point where he can self-approve loans? Self-approve? I don't know what he's trying to do. He doesn't need it. He has 3 years. Right now is when we need to infuse capital into the economy. You got this money in the reserve fund sitting there doing what? And people need money. People need work, Mr. Premier. I think that's what we have to do.
Addressing the issue during other business, Premier Smith said the money currently in the reserve fund does not mean the BVI is out of the woods, and government is still trying to pay off the debt it inherited from the previous administration.
The reality, Madam Speaker, is right now that we're depending more on the income that we get from the financial services. Madam Speaker, as tourism is not contributing as it used to. The financial services, Madam Speaker, gives us the bulk of the money in May and July and again in November. And Madam Speaker, the average monthly expenditure, recurrent expenditure for the government is around about $12 million or more. So if you're at the point now, Madam Speaker, at the end of August, and we have $22 million, and we're not going to get any sizable money until November. By November, we may have very little or none. Yeah. And the other point, Madam Speaker, is that after November, we're not getting any sizable sums of money until May. So we got another 4 months, Madam Speaker. So we have to have some money in the kitty to go over, to buy us over into the new year. So it is not as simple as some people would like to have it believe, Madam Speaker. We are certainly not out of the woods. But what we are doing is trying to keep on the right track, trying to slowly pay off some of the debt that we inherited, and trying to increase the economy so that we can do better very soon.
According to Financial Secretary Neil Smith, the newly signed protocols require that the reserve fund, which is the lowest total balance of unallocated liquid funds in the Treasury, must be 25% of government's recurrent expenditure. Smith said that percentage would be reflected by a reserve fund of between $60 and $70 million with no charges against it. To date, the reserve fund stands at just over $22 million, but Premier Smith in his January budget speech said he aims to grow the reserve fund to $100 million by 2015.